All right, we are back on the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. Week 1 is almost here. Week 0 in the books. Sorry for the late start. Had a little snafu at the beginning. But yes, so week 0 in the books. A lot of stuff to get to on that. Some other stuff to get to. We got football back. Final cut down for the NFL. If you're new to this channel and seeing it for the first time, hit that like and subscribe button. Week ahead. Just trying to make some notes here. That is what we got going, but appreciate everybody jumping in here. Hit that like and subscribe button. Help us grow this thing. But yeah, where should we get started? That is the question. I got some graphics here to show everybody what some of the stuff that has been going on. I think that it's one of those weeks that the calm before the storm, but we will get into the big news, YouTube TV, Fox. That is the problem right off the bat. Hold on, everybody. I will be right back. All right, hopefully that fixes the camera problem. We're on a little bit of a delay here. See if I can see me. Nope, can't see me. I will be right back, everybody. All right. Hopefully that has fixed the camera issue. Um, all right, we're back in business. So yeah, the elephant in the room is Fox. Um, hold on, just trying to retweet this. All right, got that fixed. Just trying to get the camera situation hammered out. But yes, the beginning of this is Fox and YouTube are in a or not a camera dispute. I was in a camera dispute, but hey, it must be the money. Yeah, I know the Fox thing is bizarre. I don't know why they sign these deals right before when the season starts. I would think that they've had all off season from the end of November to get this whole TV dispute figured out. I know this much: I will cancel YouTube TV if they do not get this fixed. That is the biggest thing. Dave's here comes out with, "Hey, must be the money." Yeah, it is definitely the money aspect of this. I don't get it. Just very bizarre, very odd. On why they would make a big stink at the moment. It's if YouTube TV wants to have a bunch of people cancel their memberships and all of that stuff, yeah, that's what's potentially going to happen. No Big Ten on YouTube TV. That's what is on the table right now. What they're looking at. Um, the problem. I mean, it's a major problem. So there's that. I don't know what the Dave's here said, "Goddamn, glad I got Hulu." Yeah, if they don't have it fixed by week 1, Ohio State, Texas, you're going to see a huge contingency of people switch their TV provider, and I mean in a hurry. Um, that's why your boy has a backup analog TV for situations of this sort. So that's pretty much how I'm going to solve that issue on my end of it, or switch providers altogether. Um, I just do not comprehend that. Also, sticking on the Ohio State front, Bobby Carpenter and Austin Ward were talking today on whatever podcast they did. I seen somebody post the clip of Austin Ward pretty much said in a roundabout way that Dave Portnoy is not welcome, in the horseshoe. So we're going to see how that whole thing transpires. Um, I know the Buckeye folks were pretty much not thrilled that he was going to be on Big Noon Kickoff. Um, the whole Big Noon thing is going to be very, very interesting. I think that is there's gonna be a lot to be said and desired about that. I think it's petty as hell if they don't let him in. If they don't let him into the horseshoe, I'm going to find it very bizarre. They should let him in. That's just my opinion. He's there to do a job. He's there getting paid by your broadcast partner. So if you don't like it, that is kind of tough shit on that angle of it. So there's that. The Portnoy thing, whatever. I mean, Fox has pretty much ruined, I think, their relationship with Ohio State, probably ruined a lot of things. I get it. They're taking that Fox money, but I don't know how much it's going to last. Ohio State fans got that. If it was at night, it would. Oh, yeah. I just think that when it comes to it, a lot of these Big Ten games should be they should have night games. That's a whole angle. I mean, if you're a Big Ten fan, you have, how do I want to put this? You have an accelerated hatred for Fox to begin with. So I don't think Ohio State fans, Michigan fans, Penn State fans, I think they can all bond over one thing and say, hey, we're not real big fans of this whole Fox thing. I would say that the Big Ten is going to be looking for a new TV partner in 2032. So that's just where I'm at on that. Unless Fox is willing to punt the big noon kickoff. That's just my opinion. We'll see where that rolls into. Other notes, the Colorado quarterbacking job. I don't believe they've announced the starter yet. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think both guys play. One of the folks at Georgia Tech did come out and say that there was he referenced that Colorado brings out all these celebrities and the celebrities don't play the game. So I mean that's a factual point. So we'll see how that blends and how that transpires, but it is what it is. But I guess we'll jump over to the week 1 scores. I know there's an elephant in the room that we do have to address. Matt Campbell and Iowa State are victorious over K-State. The Purple Cats go down by a field goal. A lot of confusion at the end of the game on some things. I think the broadcast team was confused at the end of it on why they didn't have to run another play. That's just kind of what it is. So there's that. But yeah, Avery Johnson, neither quarterback looked great in the first half. Rocco Beck got sacked like 4 times in the first half, and then Iowa State finally settled in and ended up winning the game. It looked like Avery Johnson connected on a big bomb to tie it up. Iowa State drives down, kicks a field goal. A lot of questions on Chris Kleinman on why he went for it on 4th down a ton. To me, it looked like there was something wrong with that field, to be honest. As far as drainage wise, because I don't think the ball should have been that saturated and been that wet. That's what it is. And then Rocco looked like he was shot putting it while pitching it. Yeah, that is a true fact. One of the guys I tweeted at earlier today just got back with me. YouTube probably doesn't want to pay Fox what Fox wants, so they let it get public and have the panic be their ally. Yeah, let me respond to him real quick. But yeah, I think that the way that went was very interesting. Yeah, so I know every year a provider gets the same shit. Yeah, I hear you on that, Dave. I could see why there's tons and tons of pushback on this. And yeah, I'm just scanning the Twitter right now. It's just um I don't know if this is real or fake. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I had to deal with some of that. But okay, so yeah, week 0, UNLV escapes Idaho State, which um, Idaho State, very interesting. They've had pretty good showings against big boy opponents. They took Oregon last year down to the brink. Oregon didn't look great against them, so there is that. Kansas rolls Fresno State. Fresno State hardly any offense. Kurt Warner's son threw for 179 yards, 2 INTs. I've seen after that performance, a lot of people are coming out to um, take the Jayhawks to win the Big 12. So there is that. I find it very interesting that they are picking Kansas to win the Big 12 after one performance. So there's that. But if they don't get this Fox YouTube TV thing figured out, it's going to be a very interesting time. And then Sam Houston takes on Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky pretty much almost doubles them up. Western Kentucky looked like a juggernaut in some early CUSA action. And Hawaii walks off with a field goal to beat Stanford. I think this is going to be a recurring theme at Stanford. The firing of Troy Taylor when it happened was not very well timed, not very well prepared. So there is that. So getting back into it, a look ahead a little bit before we get to the end of it. The bigger news at the end of week 0 after the Kansas State Iowa State game, Avery Johnson and his dad and brother get into a physical altercation after the game. They released a joint statement. I kind of get it. Not agreeing with it, but it's a family issue that boiled over in public. I'm sure he's probably after the press conference probably taking a shower, doing all his into the game stuff. They just lost a conference game over in Ireland. He's doing the post game stuff and expecting to go see his family, and you have that situation happen. So I'm sure he was not thrilled with father and brother. At some point, you got to keep some things behind closed doors, in my opinion. I don't think that it's conducive to the behavior of the university or the school. I'm sure the school is not thrilled. They apologize to alumni and fans, but then again, I kind of chalk that up to, sometimes shit just happens. But there's that. But if this is your first time making it to the show, hit that like and subscribe button. Help us grow this thing. I think depending on if schedule permits itself, we'll get into what's going to be on the streaming schedule. We're going to be streaming games live all day Saturday. I will anyway. I think Richie might join me for a little bit. He's in the middle of doing some stuff. Ohio State, Texas is going to be on the docket for the first noon game of the year. We'll have Ohio State, Texas, and then it'll be followed by Alabama, Florida State, and then we're going to jump into Clemson, LSU, and then I'm not sure what we're going to do on the 11 o'clock. The two Big Ten games, we might have those on the channel, might not. I might stream them, don't know. Depends on how much interest we gauge off of LSU, Clemson, and that's that. But also turning the look ahead to Thursday, 5:30, Boise State, South Florida kick at 5:30 Eastern. That's pretty much the compelling games for Thursday. Don't think you're going to learn a whole lot about UT Martin taking on Oklahoma State. Don't think we're going to learn much from that. But the only other compelling game you have on Thursday is ESPN's going to have that double header. You'll have Nebraska, Cincinnati live from Arrowhead. That doesn't kick off until 9 o'clock. That is going to be a late one for the folks. I think that's primarily marketed towards the West Coast audience just because it's a 6:30 kickoff. Nebraska 7-point favorite as it sits right now. So there is that. Wisconsin, Miami of Ohio. I'm surprised. Well, I'm not really surprised. Wisconsin only a 17.5-point favorite in that game. And that also kicks at 9. It's an 8 o'clock kick Central. And then Friday you have the Baylor kicking at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock Central. Baylor taking on the Fighting Hugh Freezes. About this game, I think that we're going to see a lot. Auburn is a 2.5-point favorite, over under 57.5, courtesy of Bet ESPN, is where the line's at. I think that if the schedule permits, if they don't get that resolved, that's going to be interesting because they'll have a lot of eyeballs on Auburn, Baylor, and then Georgia Tech, Colorado also kicks at 8 o'clock. If the schedule permits, I will be streaming both of those, and we will be checking that out. So there is that. Like I said, the noon slate is going to be Ohio State, Texas on TV1. TV2 will be Syracuse, Tennessee. Probably Syracuse, Tennessee will be in a multi-box with a couple other games. Interesting of note, Tulane takes on Northwestern, taking on a Power 5 opponent. Kent State takes on Merrimack. Do the Flashes get a win? That is the question. Penn State Sports Talk, just checking it out. One day closer to the season. Let's go. Week 1, can't wait. Nevada, Penn State will let us know where we are at. I don't know how much you're going to be able to pull. I would say they will have everybody out of the game by the third quarter when it comes to the Penn State side of things, but appreciate it, Penn State Sports Talk. Just looking over the games of note, Indiana, Old Dominion, I think that's Lamb getting led to slaughter. Georgia takes on Marshall, and Georgia's a 39.5-point favorite. I think I'm going to take the Dogs in that one to cover it. I think the Dogs cover that because I think Marshall is bad. I think they lost like 32 guys to the portal. They're all at Southern Miss now. Oh, yeah, speaking of that, Southern Miss is taking on Mississippi State. And for the people that live down there that I listen to that are not out of everybody's market, it sounds like Mississippi State, Southern Miss might give them fits. My guy, Chase Parham at MPW Digital was talking about that the last couple of days. Every time that's came up, he's mentioned something about that. So I don't think he would mention it if he doesn't believe that there's something there. And then Alabama, Florida State at 3:30. We'll have that on. I'm sure I'll probably have Kirby and the Dogs on in a multi-box with Penn State. The 3:30 multi-box should be Penn State, Georgia. Penn State, Georgia will probably be in there, and I don't know who else they'll throw in there with it, but Alabama, Florida State will be the topic du jour. That's what the stream will be built on. But I'll have my eyeball on those other games as well. To the late slate, there's nothing real of note. The Gators take on Long Island University. I'm assuming that's in Long Island. There is no money line, no nothing on that. So I think we can chalk that one up. The Texas A&M fans have already started the negative stuff. They think they're going to lose to UTSA. I don't think so, but that's just me. Michigan takes on New Mexico at the 7:30 window, NBC/Peacock, and then you have LSU Clemson. That'll be the 7:30 stream on what we have going there. Ole Miss doesn't kick until 7:45. Probably not going to watch a whole lot of that. They're 36-point favorites against Georgia State. So there's that. SMU plays East Texas A&M. Have no idea where that's at. And then Arizona State kicks at 10 p.m. They take on Northern Arizona. And then for the Big Ten doubleheader, if we have Fox, you've got UCLA taking on Utah, and then Colorado State, Washington. And then Sunday, I might stream both games. We're going to have Notre Dame, Miami, obviously. And then Virginia Tech, South Carolina, that's a Beamer family game. So no real interest in North Carolina, TCU. So there's that as the topic du jour. USC, Missouri State at 7:30. Probably not watching that. So there's kind of where we're at. Pitt takes on Duquesne. That is very fascinating. The City Series, they'll play them in football, but not in basketball. Very bizarre behavior by Pitt there. So there is that. Just looking at the rest of the Thursday slate, nothing real of note. I mean, NC State plays East Carolina, although NC State has almost been snake bitten by them a few times, so we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out. But getting back to the news front of it, Steve Sarkisian's advice to Arch Manning is just be you. South Carolina got their running back eligible. He's 25 years old. Probably should be in the NFL. Bryce Underwood named the starter. So, yeah, that's pretty much. And then Kentucky names Calzada the starting quarterback. So there is that. We'll pull up some stuff that I found on the internet that I thought was interesting. Future opponents here. Notre Dame is going to play Wisconsin at Lambeau. I'm assuming that's going to be a Shamrock Series game. North Carolina goes over to Ireland, taking on TCU. Nothing. Although I think that Notre Dame game at Gillette Stadium would be pretty neat. It'll probably be at the end of the year. So Notre Dame has got that. West Virginia, Tennessee in 2028. I kind of like that. So there is that. The Georgia-Florida game is displaced because they are renovating Jacksonville Stadium. I think that's very interesting that they're making that a big deal. And then here's this with the SEC going to 9 conference games. Um, Notre Dame says it further solidifies their independence. I kind of agree with that. I think that when it comes down to it, there is a lot to be said there. Missouri comes out and says that Missouri will play Sam Horn and Bo Prabula. I don't know what Eli Drinkowitz is up to there. I think that's going to be an interesting case study going forward. Um, I want to see how that whole thing plays out in Missouri. Obviously, Missouri had a lot of momentum 2 years ago whenever they beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, but Ohio State had lost their starting quarterback, and then they lost the starting quarterback, and then it came to no Marvin Harrison Jr. So I don't really think that there's a lot of cachet there, to be honest, in my opinion. But that's kind of where it's at. So there's that. I think Missouri, Eli Drinkowitz has got to get things heading back in the right direction. I don't think they really had a fall off. I just don't think that they were as good. They lost a lot of guys to the draft. An interesting note here from Fran Brown in Syracuse with Steve Angeli. I remember him when I was at Rutgers, but he answered the phone, so he was acting funny. I remember him of that. So a lot of people, here's my take when it comes down to the Tennessee stuff. Dave's here with a comment. When the SEC and the Big Ten play a game a year between them and there's no space for ND, will it affect the strength of schedule versus the Big 12 ACC teams? Might be an issue. Well, here's the deal. When it comes to this, I think that when you have the Big Ten and the SEC going to 9 conference games affects things. It may not affect it this year, but what it tells me is the schedule graphic, or the schedule formula for the college football playoff is going to change. I don't think the other I think for them to play ball, I think they're doing this. This is the anticipation of the ACC going belly up, in my opinion. I think that is on the horizon, because I think the SEC wants Virginia. I think they'll take North Carolina. I think they take Clemson. And if they could talk them into it, I think they'll take Notre Dame and everything but football. And I think Notre Dame will strike a deal with the SEC to play a handful of their opponents. They probably won't get hardly any TV money, but I think the folks at Notre Dame are not in on what the Big Ten is selling, because I think outside of Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, what is the Big Ten? They're not major national brands. Because if you look at the SEC adds, I guess Oregon's in there, but how long does Oregon keep Dan, though? And can Washington get relevant again? I think Washington making it to the playoffs, being a major player, I think the Big Ten took Washington with the understanding that they were going to have DeBoer at the helm. Well, now you got Jed Fish. Not that I'm dogging Jed Fish. Jed Fish is going to come in and try to completely rebuild a program after DeBoer took pretty much all the big name guys with him. So some people will disagree with that, but we'll just have to see where the bottom falls out. UCLA is in, I'm not going to say turmoil. I think they probably got the best quarterback prospect that they've had in, I don't know, the last couple of years. Word is they're going to be very good this year. I'm assuming you're talking about Washington, Dave. I think it's a wait and see with the Washington stuff. I want to see it with my own eyes. I mean, obviously, I'm not at Washington's practice, but I kind of knew. I had somebody tell me that Fish was going to get the job like hours before it was announced. So we'll see on the Jed Fish stuff out there in Washington. I think if they have a 9-10 game, I think realistically now, I think the cutoff is 10 games and you're in. So, I mean, with the SEC, it stops by them going to 9 conference games. It stops the massive tiebreakers that they got to have. But the SEC is also getting that extra $8 to $10 million in revenue every year. So there's that. I think that's what got sold to them. I know some of the people in there look at it as that it's another opportunity for them to lose. But when the SEC goes to 9 conference games, don't be shocked if you don't see a team with 9 wins in there with 3 losses. I think that's on the horizon because they're going to try, because the Big Ten wants to stuff 5 teams in as they can: Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. And if USC can ever figure it out, that's another thing. USC's got the number 1 recruiting class still. They've held it. But as things go, whenever you have games and the games start happening, USC was, I don't know, I think they were maybe top 10 last year, and then they went on that big skid and they slid right out of the recruiting rankings. So I think there's something to be said there. I think that with things moving forward, I would like to see how they are going to navigate the new Big Ten, because USC lost a handful of games last year that they couldn't. USC has something like 10 more recruits than Ohio State and Michigan. Yeah. Breaking news: Kenny Pickett just got traded. Huh. That's interesting. Just skimming through the it. Yeah, so I would say that since Kenny Pickett just got traded, that makes the NFL stuff very interesting. For like 6 footballs and a bag of jock straps. Oh man. Yeah, I hear you on that, Dave. I guess we'll see where the bottom falls out on this. I think Washington will be an interesting case study to see how quick that they can rebound to get back to the college football playoff. I think Jed Fish did a really good job at Arizona. I'm just curious to see how it's going to translate out there in Washington. I think that they have a pretty decent NIL budget. It's just getting people up there. I mean, it's not Washington State, so I think that's what they have going for them. Being the campus and everything, from what I've seen, looks awesome out there. So there's that. as we approach the final segment, if you're checking out the show for the first time, hit that like and subscribe button. Help us grow this thing. We're going to be having live stream watch-alongs, watch parties, whatever you want to call them, all Saturday, depending on my work schedule, maybe even Friday, and we'll be at it on Sunday as well. So might have 2 games for you on Sunday. I think South Carolina might tap into that market and see what we can get rolling there. But hit that like and subscribe button and help us grow this thing. We are on the road to 500. So Dave's here with another comment. USC average recruit is almost the same as Ohio State. They are getting dudes too. Yeah, I think that when it comes down to the USC stuff, I think that it's very fascinating as well, because I don't see how they're not successful in the recruiting game, to be honest. Here is Josh Pate. He threw this out on Instagram. I don't disagree where he has Kentucky. I don't disagree where he has Mississippi State. Where I don't agree, I think Arkansas will finish 6-6. I think Vandy is rated where they need to be. Auburn at 7-5. I don't know if Hugh Freeze survives that, is what I'm saying on that end of, on the Auburn side of things. I don't know if Hugh Freeze can survive a 7-5 season. I mean, he just flip-flops the record from last year. I think his game with Oklahoma is going to be very, very interesting. Missouri at 8-5. I don't really have any disagreement with that. Ole Miss at 8-4. I think that is perfect. I think that's where Ole Miss could be realistically. Tennessee at 8-4, I think, is high on the win total. I think Tennessee goes under their win total. I think their win total is at 8.5. I'm taking Syracuse week 1 against Tennessee. I think Syracuse wins that game outright. I really do, with it kind of sort of being a neutral site game. It is, but not really. Be interesting to see what Tennessee looks like week 1. South Carolina, if you told me at the end of the year South Carolina went 8-4, it would be interesting with Lenora Sellers. I think they might have another win in them. Oklahoma at 8-4, I think the fans would be upset, but I think the administration will keep Venables. If they're 8-4, they're just at the cusp. The elephant in the room here is LSU at 8-4. With Nussmeier, I would think the folks at LSU would consider that unacceptable, just in my opinion. I think that where LSU is at for what they invested in the portal, I think it'll get real weird down there at Baton Rouge. But I also think after week 4 or 5, when they leave Vaught Hemingway Stadium, I think they'll have 3 losses. So I don't know how Brian Kelly's going to survive an 8-4 year at LSU. But it would be the most Brian Kelly thing in the world to keep him employed. But he also is that guy that is kind of ahead of the mob, essentially. He was kind of like Tuberville. He always got out of Dodge right before shit hit the fan. So I think Brian Kelly may skedaddle Texas A&M at 9-3. I think the Aggies would be highly disappointed with that. That's just my opinion. Georgia 9-3. I think if that happened, I think they would be wanting to burn down Sanford Stadium. A lot of the stuff that in which Kirby, there's an interesting stat that I'm going to show about Kirby here in a second. Kirby's only lost 19 games at Georgia, so I don't really see how they could complain too much on that end of it. Florida, Billy Napier goes 9-3. I think that guy will be in extension talks. Just my opinion. I know there's a contingent of the Florida fan base, even though I have the Gators on today. There is a contingent of the Florida fan base that no matter what Billy Napier does, they want him fired. I get it. But I would not touch that program. I think they're trending in the right direction. I think it's taken a year longer than where they wanted to be. I think at the end of last year, I think Florida's trajectory and the momentum they had going into the offseason was unbelievable. And I think it bared the weight in recruiting. And then also the offseason recruiting and the in-season recruiting are two different things. I think that if Billy ends up 9-3 this year at Florida, I think his recruiting will take another step up from what it is. I think they'll be pushing in the top 10 because I think some of the other guys that are committed to other schools, I think they'll be able to get in there on the flip alert. In Texas and Alabama being in the SEC championship game, there's no shock to me on that one. I think the SEC is Texas's to lose, and it's Alabama's to win, in my opinion. I think Alabama's going to be better this year than when they were last year, just on that front. And this is the stat I was talking about with Kirby Smart. During Kirby Smart's tenure at Georgia, he's had more players drafted in the first round than he's lost games. So I think the fans in Georgia should probably chill if Kirby doesn't make the playoff. I get it, but he kind of needs to restock the cupboard for all intensive purposes. In my opinion, he needs to restock. And this is also something interesting I found as far as the travel stuff when it comes to Stanford, why I think Stanford is going to have a bad year. They're going to fly 23,000 miles this year altogether. I think that's very interesting, telling, and a lot of things on how college football has evolved and has changed. I think for the most part that I find it very interesting that they have done that. But I think the most compelling matchup week one for me is going to be what Tennessee looks like taking on Steve Angeli and Syracuse and Fran Brown and that whole thing. And I'm going to kick it back over to I'm real curious on what Alabama's going to look like. They're kind of a curious team to me because I think they're going to be really good. I want to see what Auburn looks like week one. Hugh Freeze down there is catching a lot of heat. Several people have put him on blast. I know AJ McCarron had some not so kind words for Hugh. And I think that's kind of where it's at for Auburn, to be honest. With you. All kinds of trades going on in the NFL. Another reply from Jeffrey. What he had to say was maybe they think that the dispute is about digital access. If YouTube TV wins, they get access to Fox One, but that doesn't make sense because if you have YouTube TV, you don't need Fox One. It's a valid point on Jeffrey's end of it. Um, I think that that's very, very telling on how this whole dispute is going to end. What is I just look at the whole thing and think to myself, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing that? They had all off season to get this figured out. I had the whole off season to get it figured out, and we wait until 3 days before probably arguably the biggest game in the off season to try to get this dispute brewing, and they make it to what it is. Very bizarre to me. It's just what it is. I can't really put a finger on it, but that's where we're at on that front. Out there for if you're watching this on delay, put in the comments who you're most excited to see, whether it's your team or another team that you're going to have in the off season, or well, that you've been anticipating to see what they look like in the off season. I think there's going to be a lot of people that want to see Ohio State right off the gate, what they look like against Texas. I think that's going to be a fascinating matchup. I think it's going to feed families, but the big thing is you don't have a definitive look in practice at all. Hold on 1 second, please. That's just all that I'm looking at. I think that for the most part, I think a lot of people are anticipating to see what Indiana looks like. It's just one of those things. And then ESPN.com put out the ranking of the top 100 players. I would trying to get that list pulled up here. We'll go through 1 through 25. DJ Lagway at 25, Arch Manning 23, DJ U's brother at 20. Shout out to him. I don't see how Ryan Williams comes in at 12, Dylan Stewart at 10, Nussmeier at 8. They've got Jeremiah Smith number 1, and then I think it's because Ohio State's playing Texas. I'm not saying that Anthony Hill Jr. is not good, but I think that's why he's 2 instead of 3. This is Cade Klubnik on there at 4, Jeremiah Love at 5, TJ Parker 6. So that's pretty much the extent of that list. Not a whole bunch, but that is pretty much where we're at. Peter Woods also makes the list at 9. So I think that for the most part, this is pretty much where we're at. I'll be interested to see what Boise is. Alex Grinch in South Florida, going on the road down there. I think that Boise's going to be in for it a little bit because it's going to be about 90 degrees when that game kicks off. This is very interesting to me because Boise might wilt in the weather. Also thought that was going to happen last year when they went down to Georgia Southern and they kicked at noon or 11 Central. So there's that. The anticipation of Penn State playing Nevada. I don't know what tangent we're going to be on there. That's interesting. South Dakota State taking on Iowa State. I don't know how interesting that'll be, but they're back in action. And I think that they're going to have a short week. I'll be interested to see what Iowa State looks like because of the trip back from Ireland. That is going to be a fascinating case study on how that Ireland game affects teams because before Georgia Tech's bye week, they kind of sputtered out. So, and then Florida State ended up being god awful. I'm interested to see what Florida State looks like, to see how much they've gotten better. I mean, I think if you're Florida State, outside of the dog shit eating guy, I don't think it could get much worse. That guy went into protective custody or whatever he did. A lot of anticipation on Arizona State as well. I think that it's going to be fascinating. And I'll be interested to see what Tulane looks like too, taking on Northwestern. And Pat Fitzgerald, I guess, kind of got his name cleared on that end of it. I'm assuming he's going to resume his coaching career next year, see what jobs become available. What would be a big thumb to the nose, this is just my last thing on this before we get everybody out of here. This will be a big thumb to the nose is if you have Brett Bielema take the Iowa job if Kirk Ferentz retires. If Bielema goes to Iowa, Pat Fitzgerald to Illinois and builds a monster there because he really doesn't have to move out of the state. He doesn't really move too far. Champaign from Evanston. I think that's under 200 miles or so. So we'll see where that shakes out. I think that's going to be real interesting to say the least on what jobs become available and what jobs get moved here. So there is that. Just anticipating this weekend to come. The first weekend in college football is always great, although I'm not the biggest fan of like the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. Because they did that in Dallas for a couple of years. I would much rather see teams play at their home field instead of neutral site games. So that's just the way it is. Dave's here with a comment that said working all the way to the middle. Yeah. So we'll see. I'm sure there's going to be more NFL trades and free agency moves as they cut down the rosters. But college football is locked, stocked, and ready to go next weekend. I think we have the NFL starting, so there is that to be said. So it is going to be very fascinating to me. So there is that. But I guess we will end it here. But if this is your first time tuning into the channel, if you're watching this for the first time, and if you've made it this far and you enjoy this content, hit that like and subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications and help us grow this channel, because as soon as we get to 500, I think on Fridays, we're going to add a call-in show. It's going to be the Friday at 5 call-in show to where we'll be able to take phone calls on the show. That is something that we're working towards, getting that available, and maybe even post-game call-in shows. So that is something that we're looking for. And then eventually there's going to be some members only content that we have going to be going up. So there is that. But with that being said, hit that like and subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications, and we will see you later.